Okay, it is Wildcard Wednesday, and we're going to do a Wilderness Medicine Wildcard Wednesday, one of our favorites. Let's talk about sutures and staples and glue. Oh my. Let's go. Okay, I really wanted to title this video Choosing the Right Suture Kit or something like that, but that would have been misleading. I want to talk about sutures in the backcountry. I want to talk about staples in the backcountry. I want to talk about glue in the backcountry and the problem with all three of those things being in your first aid kit. What prompted this was something I saw on Instagram. A sailing channel that's also a YouTube channel that I follow that I really like did a post about a surgeon who was on their boat who critiqued their first aid kit and was very happy to see a suture kit, was very happy to see staples, a stapler, a surgical stapler, and very happy to see an EpiPen. Let's talk about this real quick. The first thing to understand is that sutures or stitches are used to close a wound. Unless we're talking about sewing an artery that has got a problem, we're only using them to close wounds. Unless you are a surgeon, you probably don't know how to sew an artery, and that's not something we want to attempt in the backcountry or out at sea. If you were in the front country and you needed sutures to close a wound, they would do a number of things. The first thing they would do is they would clean the wound really well with sterile saline. Next, they would maybe give you IV antibiotics or at least an oral antibiotic. Then they're going to anesthetize the area where they're doing the sutures with lidocaine, although I'm now seeing a lot of places are using a lidocaine epinephrine combination because epinephrine is a vasoconstrictor, so it stops bleeding in the area where they're anesthetizing, which makes it easier to do the sutures, which I think is super cool. After it's anesthetized, they're going to use, with gloved hands, a hemostat, which is a surgical clamp, to hold a needle and thread, which is normally nylon, and use that to suture the wound closed. This takes skill. This takes a lot of practice to get good at it. Then once it's closed, we can dress it and be done with it. Unless you can do all of those things in the backcountry, you should not be suturing a wound closed, right? So you can buy online suture kits, but what you can't buy is lidocaine or the lidocaine epinephrine combination that I was talking about, which means if you're suturing someone closed, then they're gonna feel every time you put a needle through their skin to pull it closed, and they're gonna feel you pulling it closed. The bigger concern is that the area is not going to be cleaned effectively because we're in the backcountry, because we're not working in a clean environment, because our tools are not sterile the way they are in the front country. Nothing in the backcountry is sterile. Even if it comes out of a sterile package, as soon as we open it, it's contaminated. We are far more likely to get an infection in this wound. And now here's the real problem. If we have sutured it closed, we can't open it to re-clean it if it's infected, which is what we need to do. So, no sutures in the backcountry, and those same sorts of rules are going to apply for a surgical stapler, like a stapler meant for use on human bodies, which you can buy online. The same is true of glues. So a lot of rock climbers, and I did this myself in my youth, will use like crazy glue for their fingertips when they crack to hold them closed so you can keep climbing. I realized it was making me lightheaded. Clear indicator you should not be doing it. In an emergency department, when they use glue, they're using something called Dermabond, which is essentially crazy glue designed for use on human skin. You won't have reactions to it, but the problem still persists in that I can't open it if I need to re-clean it, if it's infected. You know you've got an infection when it is red, warm, painful. That's the trifecta of infection, as I like to call it in wilderness medicine classes. Those are all indicators of an infection, which just means you didn't do a good enough job cleaning it. Okay, so if I can't use staples, I can't use sutures, and I can't use Dermabond or crazy glue in the backcountry, what should I use to close a wound? And the answer is something as simple as steri strips, or this is a sterile wound closure strip. They come out of a package like this. I'm actually going to cut these in half. These are great for closing up a small laceration. If you feel like you can't close it with steri strips, then I would just pack it moist and evacuate the patient. You do not want to be dealing with that. So steri strips work really well. Here is a picture that I used on myself. This was a weird puncture wound with a little bit of a flap, and I used steri strips to close it, and then I covered it using a transparent semi-permeable dressing. I absolutely love these things. You can buy them just about anywhere at this point. These are like Gore-Tex bandages, essentially. They allow water vapor out, but do not let water in. They have two covers. You can place them over a wound site super easily. And they're transparent, so you can see through them, which means you can monitor for infection. Those are super nice. I'm a big fan of those for wounds, particularly in wet environments. And this is a little kit that comes from Knowles, that Knowles sells, called the Wound Closure Kit. It's got everything you need to close a wound. It does not come with an irrigation syringe, which I am a big fan of. This costs about $1, weighs about an ounce, and is the absolute best way to clean out a wound. Still not sterile, unless you've got sterile saline in the backcountry. Hey, this is Brett from the future. I wanted to add just a couple of things here, some things that I thought about even after I had this video uploaded. This video is going to go live tomorrow, but I wanted to add a couple things. Even if you add sterile saline to that irrigation syringe, the syringe isn't sterile, so now the saline's not sterile. That's not what I wanted to tell you. When we're cleaning a wound, we are really only cleaning it with water. If it's really dirty and contaminated, you could make a mixture of povidone iodine, which is different than the iodine we use to treat water. You should make it to the color of like a light iced tea. Very rarely have I ever needed that, but it's something to think about. Do not use neosporin, bacitracin, hydrogen peroxide, alcohol to clean a wound. We're only going to use water. That is our goal. The rest of those things can actually slow the healing process. I don't want to get too into it because I've already added enough to this video, but save those for other uses, which I don't really know what they are. Also, antibiotic ointment does not prevent infection. It keeps wounds moist. The triple antibiotic ointment, which a lot of people are allergic to the third antibiotic, which is neomycin. So if you can get double antibiotic ointment, it's better. But in any case, that should not go in the wound either. If you're using that, put it, and you're not using that transparent dressing that I showed, it goes on the gauze that you're putting over the wound. Okay, back to me. So that's super quick, super easy way to clean a wound, close a wound, stay away from those more surgical things. Unless you're a surgeon and have all the things that you need to do that, particularly lidocaine or some other anesthesia, local anesthetic, so that the patient isn't in pain. That's how to deal with a wound, not with sutures. All this information you'll get if you take a wilderness first aid course with me. I'm teaching in Brooklyn in December, and I'm teaching in Baltimore, Maryland for some reason, 3 times, January, February, March. So if you want info on those, email me or message me somehow, and I'll let you know where they are. Besides those being sources, I also use Medicine for Mountaineering as a good source, and the Knowles Wilderness Medicine book. Both of those are available online. If you enjoyed this, do me a favor, hit like, hit subscribe. Otherwise, I'll see you outside. Don't cut yourself. And unless you have an allergy that results in anaphylaxis, you don't need an EpiPen either. Check out this video up here to explain why.